In this lesson, I want to teach you a new strategy for taking on a difficult informational text and determining the central ideas. In this strategy, you're going to have some work that you're doing before reading, during reading, and after reading. I want to model each step in this process with the text that we worked with on Friday. So before reading, you're going to read the title and look at text features. I want you to ask yourself, what do I already know about the topic? And then what are the questions that I think the text will answer? I'm going to encourage you to write down 1 or 2 or even 3 of those questions. So the title of the text that we worked with on Friday is Somewhat Ethnic Studies Classes to Be Curriculum at California Schools. So I think that the topic is ethnic studies. So what do I already know about the topic? Well, I know that Seattle Public Schools is currently working to make ethnic studies a graduation requirement for all students. I also have kind of a fuzzy idea of what I think the course is about. So I think that ethnic studies is a course that teaches the history and the stories of communities of color who haven't often been taught in traditional history courses. So what are the questions that I think the text will answer? Well, based on the title, I have 2 questions so far. I think the text will probably give me a definition of ethnic studies. And then I'm also guessing that the text is going to answer the question, why do people want it to be a part of the curriculum? Just because the title is Somewhat Ethnic Studies Classes to Be Curriculum at California Schools. So I'm guessing it's going to tell me why. Now I'm going to look at the text features. I have this image of this student who is standing in front of what I believe is probably a project that she's worked on, and the title of her poster is Immigrant Rights. And the caption reads, Angela Warren, 18, of South Los Angeles, California, poses for a portrait in Ron Espiritu's classroom at Camino Nuevo Charter Academy, Miramar campus in LA, August 8th, 2019. Well, based on this image of Angela and her poster, I'm guessing that the text is also going to answer the question, how does ethnic studies benefit students like Angela? She has this huge smile on her face. I'm guessing that she had a really positive experience in ethnic studies classes. And so I'm guessing it's going to tell me how it benefits students like her. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually read for the answers to those questions. So this is going to give me a purpose for my reading. So I am going to either circle or mark or highlight anything that helps me to answer the questions that I generated before reading. So I'm going to throw those questions up here. And I'm going to choose to highlight the details that I think answer these questions. So I'm going to read it to you and I'm going to highlight these details. An assignment in Angela Warren's high school ethnic studies class taught her how her father, a native of El Salvador, had entered the United States. She had always assumed her father arrived by plane. Warren learned that he had crossed the border alone at 14 years old, terrified of being caught. When he reached the American side, he fell to his knees and gave thanks. That class combined an eye-opening view of her family's past and inspired her mission to change the future. So right away, it helps me answer this question, how does ethnic studies benefit students like Angela? So it said it gave her an eye-opening view of her family's past and inspired her mission to change the future. Warren is now an 18-year-old college student. She says that at a time when watching the news can make her feel anxious and helpless, it's the lessons she learns in ethnic studies class that bring awakening and empowerment. So that, again, is evidence of how it benefits students like Angela. It made me feel comfortable with myself, knowing my family history and knowing the history of my people. So again, it shows me how it benefits her, but it also gives me an idea of this first question, what is ethnic studies? I'm guessing that based on what she said, that the class teaches students about their family history and about the history of their people. Said Warren, she attends Marymount, California University. California lawmakers are looking to make ethnic studies a graduation requirement in high school and at California state universities. This has been a source of great debate. There are educators who are creating the study plans for the class. There are people who are opposed to parts of the study plan. There are also people who support the proposed study plan. Warren's former teacher, Ron Espiritu, believes ethnic studies are needed. He sees his students facing issues of inequality, hate speech, immigration raids, and mass shootings. Well, this helps me answer the question why people want it to be part of the curriculum. So at least Angela's teacher, Ron Espiritu, believes that ethnic studies is needed, and he says it's because students are facing these huge issues like inequality, hate speech, immigration raids, and mass shootings. And so he says, how do we not talk about these issues, right? Ethnic studies gives these students the space to talk about these really important issues. The high school requirement, believed to be the first in the nation, appears to have support among state lawmakers and beyond. A separate bill requiring an ethnic studies class for every California State University student has drawn mixed reactions. There is wide support for the courses. However, some instructors and administrators oppose a state requirement. Okay, so I've highlighted any details that help me to answer these 3 questions. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually think about the answers to these questions. So I'm going to look at the evidence that I have and see if I can answer any of these questions based on what I highlighted or circled or marked. So what is ethnic studies? Well, I didn't get a very clear definition in the text. So some of your questions you might not have answered fully, but based on what it says, I'm guessing that it is teaching students about their history and the history of their people, but it's also down here giving them a space to talk about some really important current issues that impact them and their communities. Why do people want it to be part of the curriculum? Well, clearly it benefits students who have often not seen their stories told in schools, like Angela. So I would say that it definitely benefits these students, is one of the reasons why people want it to be part of the curriculum. But also Angela's teacher, Ron Espiritu, says it also gives them a space to talk about these important issues. And then how does ethnic studies benefit students? Well, it helps them, it inspires them, it empowers them, it teaches them about their history, it gives them the space to talk about these issues. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to highlight ideas that I saw repeated over and over and over throughout the text. And this is going to really help me to think about what are the central ideas. What are the ideas that the author wants me to understand or believe? So the first idea I've already actually highlighted because it answers one of my questions. So it is clear the idea that is repeated over and over and over throughout the text is that ethnic studies really benefits students of color. It really benefits students who haven't seen their stories, their histories taught or told in schools. And then the second idea that I saw repeated over and over and over, I actually didn't even think about when I was generating questions, was that ethnic studies is still not like a thing that everyone agrees on, right? We had down here that California lawmakers are looking to make ethnic studies their graduation requirement in high school and at California State Universities. This has been a source of great debate. There are educators who are creating the study plans for the class. There are people who are opposed to part of the study plan. There are also people who support the proposed study plan. And then again, later on, I have a separate bill requiring the ethnic studies class for Cal State University students has drawn mixed reactions. There's wide support for the course. However, some instructors and administrators oppose a state requirement. So although my first central idea is absolutely the author wants me to believe or understand that ethnic studies benefits students of color, right? Ethnic studies allows students of color to learn about their history and discuss issues important to their community, right? That is an idea that I see repeated over and over and over throughout the text, especially in Angela's story. But the second idea that I saw repeated over and over and over throughout the text is that there is still a lot of debate about if the course should be taught, right? The author included these details in pink, right, to really show me that it's not like everyone agrees on this. It's not for sure that this course is going to become a requirement because some people still don't think it should. So that's what I believe right now are my two central ideas. But I just want to double check by summarizing my who, what, where, when, how, why, and so what. And again, like I've said all along, this is an optional step. If this helps you, great, do it. If it doesn't, that's fine. And remember, you don't have to there's not like a correct answer for this, right? I feel like I don't have the right answers all the time, or I have a different answer for these questions than Ms. Lombard does. But what's important is that I'm really thinking about what is this text mostly about, and I'm using that to double check my central ideas. So my who, I think, is teachers, lawmakers, and students. My what is definitely ethnic studies. Where, California schools. The whole article is about California schools. My why, well, I think the why for ethnic studies is how it benefits students, to empower students of color by teaching them to understand and to tell their own stories. My when is now. They're trying to make this a requirement right now. The how is a law making ethnic studies a graduation requirement in California schools. My so what, I kind of struggle with a little bit, but I think it comes back to this first central idea that ethnic studies is really important because students need to have a forum to talk about the realities of these important issues: inequality, hate speech, racism, that affect their world and their lives. So yeah, I think that when I go back and I summarize the who, what, where, when, how, why, and so what, that absolutely supports my first central idea, the main central idea that ethnic studies allow students of color to learn about their history and discuss issues that are important to their community. So that, I think, absolutely supports it. The second idea, I don't see come up in my summary, and that's okay because it is an idea that I see repeated over and over throughout the text. So I would love for you right now to go back through, to start with the first text in your text set. And with your group, I want you to work through this strategy. Start by brainstorming those questions that you think the text will answer, and then begin reading the text and highlighting or marking or circling any evidence, any details that help you answer those questions. Okay, get started.